You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome back to Built to Convert. I'm Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. Each episode, we sit down with growth-minded marketers, founders, and operators to uncover how strategy, analytics, and execution drive real growth. No fluff, just what actually works in the real world. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive. We help marketing teams turn SEO, paid media, and analytics into measurable results. If you're ready to move beyond clicks and dashboards and build real business impact, check us out at sessioninteractive.com. All right, guys, I got an OG in the house right now. Brandon O'Connor, founder of and CEO of Trustworthy Digital, a first full-service PPC, SEO, social ads, and analytics agency built on transparency and results. Brandon's digital journey began in 2001, and since he's overseen over $2 billion in ad spend and helped generate over $10 billion in client revenue. Before founding Trustworthy Digital in 2018, he led digital marketing analytics at a variety of other places over the years. Brandon, great to see you, man. Thanks for your time. Welcome.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Excited to talk.
Yeah, same. It's funny. People often ask me, you're like, who are your competitors in the space? And I'm just like, we go up against here and there, but it's like, you guys are a direct competitor of ours, but like, will we ever go up against each other? Probably not, maybe. And if we do, maybe there's a collaboration opportunity, but it's never an issue. Brandon, take us back here a little bit. Give us a background in terms of how you started in digital, and then we can kind of fast forward through that pretty quickly and talk to me about Trustworthy and what you guys have been up to and how you're looking to really push things for your clients.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, my story, I think, not unsimilar to many other people, where started off in one path in college and then ended up getting this part-time job, and that introduced me to online business, and kind of the rest is history. So I actually went to school to be a pediatrician, love kids, got a part-time job working at a clothing retailer back in 2001, working in their call center. So just part-time job, literally gas money, whatever, lunch money, essentially at the time. And when I joined there, they opened up their quote internet division, and they were doing mostly catalog sales. So again, this makes me feel really old, right, man? But we're talking 2001 is a whole different ball game, right? But anyway, when I got involved in that, they promoted me to their internet division, and I was answering emails, helping with like really basic website optimization, stuff like that. At the time, that literally, like I said, such a small portion of their business. It was maybe 1% to 2% a year. But the business knew they wanted to grow in that area. And after I got plugged in there, I thought, oh, this is going to be a big thing one day. Like the ability just for people to transact online and not have to wait on a phone call or whatever in order to order their clothes. What a great opportunity. And so I enjoyed it so much, I actually switched my major to business at the time, and then got plugged in there. Went from that company to another large clothing retailer, Pacific Sunwear. At the time, they had like 1,200 brick and mortar locations, I think, more if you add kind of some of their sub brands that they operated under, and ended up working in e-commerce over on that side. So really got integrated with everything from like web analytics. And again, this was before Google Analytics was even a thing. We used an IBM software at the time called Core Metrics.
Oh, yeah.
Right away was like, all right, this is awesome. Now I know what people are doing, where they're abandoning, all that stuff. And then started getting involved in digital ads. From there, went to Ticketmaster. I spent 12 years at Ticketmaster, helped start an in-house agency over there. That's where I got a lot of immersion in, tons of different paid advertising campaigns, a lot of SEO work that we did on behalf of our clients. And then also did a lot around web analytics there. And then eventually started Trustworthy Digital about 7 years ago. And the main reason I did that is because really was unhappy. I've been responding to a lot of RFPs. So anyone who knows the joy that RFP responses are, that was a lot of fun. And anyway, as I did that over at Ticketmaster, I realized a lot of these agencies that I was up against in these RFPs we're basically marking up media on the back end, doing a lot of stuff to kind of manipulate numbers in order to make themselves look like the cheaper option, when really they were just, again, marking stuff up 50% on the back end on CPMs, hiding that from, the partner, and they pocketed all this money. And so from that, that again was kind of the catalyst to me starting this business, is I really wanted to create an agency where we're partner focused first. We do its best on behalf of our clients. We know that our business will succeed from that. So it's just all about integrity to us in a space that unfortunately has a bad reputation when it comes to digital agencies.
Yeah, it's wild. What great points. I think you and I have been in this game long enough where a lot of our clients or prospects that we're chatting with have been burned at least once or twice in certain cases. So the skepticism and the scrutiny is really high. So good on you. Isn't it wild just to think about like how many snake oil salesmen and how many just quote unquote SEO or transparent digital agencies are out there? It's truly is wild.
It's crazy. I mean, every time, just like I'm sure you do, you get pulled in and you do an audit on behalf of the client, and it's like, wow, like they've basically done almost nothing within that time frame, or they've purchased links, which are link farms that are if anything damaging the reputation of the client, and the client doesn't know any better, right? Because their partner that they're working with is really kind of just a vendor for them, and they're just seeing their reports and taking all of that with a grain of salt, and hey, I have the item checked off my list, I can go on my day, when really they're getting taken advantage of and they don't even know that. And so, that's the fuel to the fire for us, is again, fixing that and really bringing, like I said, integrity back to partnerships, and creating really long-term, awesome relationships with our partners. That to me is the best part about doing business, is when you can work with someone for 5+ years. And I think I posted about this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, but one of the greatest joys for me is seeing, the person that maybe was a decision maker I came in with, that maybe was a director of marketing or maybe a marketing manager. And then we do a great job for them and they're exceeding their goals, and then watching them get promoted up in the organization. Like that type of stuff to me makes business so much fun, and you get to see how that impacts their life. So it's all about the partnership angle for sure.
Yeah, that's just a testament to you guys too. I agree. I think that's the agency founders just ultimate goal, is to see those individuals get promoted, see them perhaps leave those companies, and then bring you stay at that company, but they bring you to their next company, which is like the coolest feeling. I love that. Yeah. Integrity, honesty, reliability. Those are some of your core tenets that you guys really fixate on. Talk to me. What does that mean in terms of how you implement that in terms of in campaign practice?
Yeah, well, I tell our team all the time and reiterate those values, where any decision that we make on behalf of our clients, I always try to do that. And I tell my team to do that as if we had the knowledge that we had and we were in the ownership seat on their side, right? So what would I do for myself if I had the knowledge I had and I'm on their side? That's what we want to recommend to them, right? So it's always about what's best for them. And at times, that can be painful for us, right? Like we had a client recently on the paid ad side, they scaled up really big. Their TAM is only, so large. And so their budget started becoming, pretty inefficient as they got to like that last, let's say 20% of that ad spend. And so I had to sit down with the VP of marketing and just say, looking at where the budget is and where your total market opportunity is, we're kind of hitting a ceiling where if you want to take that last 20% of the market, for example, it's going to be pretty expensive. And some people do, and that's okay, and some people are just like, hey, if I'm paying a 20% premium just to get, say, a 2% extra of the market, it's not worth it. And they can take that money and maybe they can put that money in another channel that we don't directly manage, like maybe TV or radio, for example, and they can see a bigger response with those dollars, then we're always going to make that recommendation to the client. Again, does it hurt us from a revenue perspective? Short term, but long term for us, our goal is that we work with clients 5+ years. And that's not normal, as you know, in agency space, right? No. So as long as we're going back to your question, as long as every recommendation we're making on behalf of the client is what's in their best interest and not ours, our business will take care of itself through that. They're going to refer us out. We're going to do a great job for them. They're going to stay a really long time. And in the long game, it's better for us. And in the short game, again, I'm not playing that. It's not about short term for us.
Yeah.
So and that's been a key aspect of our growth.
Yeah, that's massive. And you know it. It's just, that's how you get those deeper connections. That's how you get those long-term relationships and establish that trust through transparency. So good on you. One thing you mentioned too was just, and you kind of alluded to this a bit, but is how there was terrible transparency in the past with some of those agencies that you had interacted with, and they were marking things up so aggressively. I've definitely seen that on the programmatic side and some areas on paid search in particular, where they charge a significant upfront fee, and then it's a management cost as well as a percentage of ad spend, which is pretty wild to me, the amount of money there. How do you ensure transparency in terms of the pricing components? I know you kind of alluded to that, but what do you lead with? And I guess to that point too, if you price something out and a client say, well, this is too much, what's a typical response, or how do you negotiate around that? Because again, you know the value that you guys can provide.
Yeah, great question. I mean, our pricing model from the beginning has always been value-based in general. So that comes up a lot, obviously, on these prospecting calls, right? Because someone will say, well, someone else quoted me at this price. And I said, well, for us, we bill based on value. So again, we have a lot of experience in what we do. We're very good at it. We have a history of delivering a really great ROI. Here's our expectation what that ROI will be for you, but here's our price point, and here's what we need in order to do our job really well. And so for me, I think, agency land, again, sometimes is, everyone just chopping each other down on price. Well, then you get to the point where you can't operate your business effectively, and you can't put in the effort required or the expertise. You can't hire the expertise required to deliver the type of result that at the end of the day, the client wants, right? The client wants to grow their business. And so kind of going back to that transparency, again, we're really upfront in the beginning on, the fact that we don't do these, markups on the back end. Everything's very transparent. Our dashboards, we have, standard, like a lot of agencies, right? Standard dashboards, but the clients have access to the back end. They can see everything that's set up on that side. We're very transparent as well in our reporting. Like, let's be real, right? Marketing, it's not always just a straight up, hey, this is amazing, everything's going perfect. Sometimes we have dips, right? Sometimes there's algorithm changes. Sometimes there's privacy changes, right? That we saw with iOS changes a few years ago. That really threw a wrinkle in things, right? And now we have, CCPA and some of these other laws, GDPR, obviously, when it comes to stuff that's happening in Europe. Your ability to track things is much harder now with, cookies essentially in the next year or two going away. So it's also being honest with the clients, again, I think, on where they're at. And if there's, again, a performance struggle that's happening, we're always upfront on that in our biweekly calls that we have. So we structure it this way: what's working, what's not working, and what are we doing about it? And just making sure at all times we're sharing wins, because that's important, but it's just as important for building trust with the client and doing the right thing to also share, hey, here's some struggles, that are happening, right? You and I obviously know this intimately when it comes with SEO and everything happening in the AI space and zero-click search, right? Like, traffic goals probably need to change based on market changes and technological changes. But we're always really upfront about that with people. And again, I think that's where we find these long-term relationships with our partners is we're not afraid, again, to not just only share wins, but to also share what I call opportunities, or things that aren't going as well as they could be. But then the key piece of that, right, is saying, we know this, we identified this, and here's what we're going to do to fix that. And then the next time around, reporting on how those changes are working and just iterating from there. And we find, again, that our clients love it, and it's great for our team as well. We all grow that way.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Really great points overall. Switching gears here slightly around kind of the evolution that you and I are seeing. It's inevitable that we're going to get into this conversation, obviously, Brandon, the dreaded acronym. AI, but really understanding the landscape as a whole, Brandon. I know we talked earlier before we started the podcast here around just there is, and that's come up a lot. There is like skepticism, there is some trepidation, especially individuals like you and I have been in this space for a long time, and we have team members that have as well. And they're used to a flow. They're used to seeing what works. Yes, they're evolving, but not at a clip like this, right? Mm-hmm. What's your mantra to the team to keep them motivated, to keep them and stay, hey, this is not coming for your job. This is essentially meant to be a strategic partner, not necessarily something that's going to replace you. How do you maintain kind of that motivation as we're going through such a dramatic shift here?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think there's some stuff that's more on the practical side, right? Which is, and everyone's 90-day goals, for example, they have learning about AI and bringing something to the team that they learned recently. That way, all of us can benefit from each of our areas where we're learning in our respective spaces about AI. You brought up a good point. I mean, we say the same thing to our team. We say, listen, we're not planning on just having a book of agents that take up everyone's job, right? Because there's a human aspect to what we do in marketing that I don't care what anyone says, AI is not taking that over anytime in the near future. The reality is we need to shift and pivot. Great example, we have this awesome agent we built for paid search analysis, essentially. It basically acts as like a junior specialist or analyst, we should say, in the paid space. And I was looking at our report this last week, and this is a report, again, we've like massaged a lot and worked on with the agent. It came back and it said, hey, we need to scale on this remarketing campaign because it's crushing it. It's beating all of our cost per lead goals. The budget's limited every day. We need to pump up the budget on it. And then we go back to why a human needs to be involved, right? Where we're looking at the lead quality and the CRM list, and it's like, Google, dang you, again, bot traffic, right? Like all the names are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, stuff like that, right? So like the human aspect will never go away. What we encourage our team is that we're going to help you be even more efficient. Your time is going to be better spent because rather than having to manually pull all this data or even, go through our dashboards that we have and read that takes a lot of valuable time. Whereas now we can have agentic flows and things like that are doing at least the base analysis on our behalf, sending it to our strategists. And then our strategists, of course, have to have the human knowledge, right, that I just talked about, to then say, oh, that recommendation actually isn't right. Here's why. But some of these other recommendations are great, right? This particular keyword is converting at a 50% lower CPL, but it's budget limited. Maybe it needs to get moved into its own campaign or, whatever the case is. On the SEO side, hey, this particular landing page that was just optimized for metas and had internal links pointed to it has improved in ranking and now it's driving more leads. Okay, we want to do more of that. So having that, going back to kind of your initial question, I think it's number one, encouraging people that this isn't going away, that this is only going to advance over time. But as long as we stay on top of it, as long as we're continually educating ourselves, that's the big thing for all of us in marketing, right? Is to stay on top of the latest and greatest and what's happening and take advantage of the things that are good and the stuff that's not good, throw it out, right? And as long as we can do that, then we're doing a service to our clients. It would be a disservice to our clients, as I know you agree, if we just completely ignored AI and buried our heads in the sand and tried to do things the way that we did before. All of our businesses would maybe last another 2 years and we'd be out of business, as we should, because we're not providing what the market needs. So as long as you stay on top of the team and encourage them that, I think this is the future and that they're building their knowledge in this space is, going to be beneficial for them and the business, then, I think it's a win and the clients benefit as well because, being brand side is typically a little bit slower to learn some of these things just because there's not the pressure that there is on the agency side.
Yeah, we found that quite a bit too, is that they have so many other those clients have internal responsibilities. They're relying on you to be at the forefront of this. and to empower them to make a bit better decisions. That agent reminds me, for paid search, reminds me a little bit of how Google reps just arbitrarily look to, you need to scale, you need to spend more. It's like, gosh. And the amount of times we get hit up, I think our paid team gets calls probably 5 to 10 times per day, and from varying reps just want to arbitrarily increase budget.
Yeah.
Ultimately, fixate. It sounds like, and we're doing a lot of this too, Brandon, so we can relate, as you can have these agents fixate on some more of those rudimentary, those remedial tasks, or just pieces of analysis and insights. So you can empower someone to focus on more strategic initiatives, and that person is a human, right? Is actual human,
Absolutely.
right? So that's a big piece here. And shout out to Brian Cato, is a good friend of mine, runs an agency called Fusion Vine, and him and I have had countless conversations around just the humans need to be a part of these workflows. And it is wild what AI will do if it's let to its own devices. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's hilarious. All right, well, let's transition to a little bit, or expand rather, in terms of the AI component. I think as you and I have gone through this over the last few years, it's clear no one's an expert, right, in AI.
Yeah.
It's clear that we're all learning at a real at a steady clip, and it's a lot to digest as things are changing so dramatically. A lot of big changes are going to happen in July with new LLMs updating themselves and just becoming more and more functional, it seems. What are you guys taking that in terms of your robust experience within SEO? Let's talk about SEO in particular, Brandon, and how you're evolving yourself as it relates to Google is still there, right? It's still making up significant market share. AI mode, is that going to be the new piece? Likely. Right? Is that going to really go into full swing? We're going to remove a lot of the options in terms of the blue links. LLMs are obviously becoming more and more ubiquitous, and then social as well. How are you becoming? I'm positioning ourselves, I'm curious your thoughts on this, as more of like business consultants ultimately as we evolve, rather than channel specific experts. Let me know your thoughts on that, and where you guys are taking things.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that you phrase that, because it's very similar for us, right? We want to be the partner for our clients in addressing what's changing in the market. And the reality is, I have to say this because, you go on LinkedIn, and of course, everyone wants to be confrontational is the wrong word, but they want to strike conversation. So they're going to go out with a really bold claim, which is like, Google's dying, right? How many times have we heard this, right, over the years? And again, I've been doing this since 2001, so a whole lot of times, right? The reality is Google search continues to grow, but will it be known as Google search in the future? Who knows what they want to call it? The reality is it's getting an answer, right, that they need. And to your point, yes, they're going to change the standard 10 pages with 10 links is going to be gone really soon, right? So going back to kind of your point on, being an AI expert and everything, I love that you said that too, because you see a lot of people that, again, going back to LinkedIn, they're titling themselves AI expert. It's like, guys, this hasn't been around long enough, and it changes so quickly. I would not call myself an expert in this area, and I'm in it every single day, just like you are, right? Like, I'm constantly learning. So is the rest of my team, based on what we see in real life situations with our partners, right? Thankfully, we have, like you do, enough partners where you can kind of see a bigger picture, again, versus if you're working brand side, you only have your data. That can be scary, right, when you don't have the full picture. But for people like us, again, that run agencies, I think analyzing, again, what's working in the current space and then adjusting our frameworks around that has been really important. So just going back to kind of what you talked about with structural changes on Google, and obviously more people going to ChatGPT and Perplexity and these other LLMs for answers for things, which, by the way, I think is a good thing, because I think they do a really good job of that versus having to bounce around everywhere. We've adjusted priority of our deliverables on behalf of our clients. So we went out to our clients recently, and we're sending out notifications even this week to a couple others. Hey, based on your current statement of work, we're actually going to recommend we change some of those deliverables, obviously get sign off from the partner, But the reality is, levels of importance for deliverables have changed, right? So I think, most people will agree that, brand reputation, which obviously always was important on Google, but is almost more important, I think, now with LLMs and what we're seeing. I think especially for smaller brands, getting mentions is really, really important. So having your company shown in listicles, top tens, best ofs, things like that, even from a site that maybe in the past Google may not have looked at in the best way. I'm finding, at least in LLMs, they're actually looking at it as a trusted source. And so that means doing more outreach to get our partners listed in some of those placements, right? Link building in general, which we probably don't have time to go into a full conversation on the mess that link building is, but building relevant links on some of these niche specific resources is, we're finding, making a really big difference, right? So we're starting to change that up a little bit. Another really big area that we're finding, and there's been some great reports that have been released recently. I can't remember if it was SEMrush or who, it might have been Ahrefs actually.
Ahrefs, yeah, probably. Yeah.
But yeah, talking about each different LLM and ranking factors across those. And one thing that we found that was reinforced with the report that I read is that I think it was Chat looked at Reddit and Quora and some of these other community forums as like kind of a brand signal as well. And so we went to look at a bunch of our partners, and a bunch of our partners, like, there's a lot of chatter on these forums about different businesses in these spaces. And our partners weren't spending any time responding to any of those things. So now, again, we're looking at, okay, how do we build this into our deliverables on behalf of our clients so that we're going into these forums, for example, on their behalf and making sure that their brand is being talked about, right? Because at the end of the day, that's going to drive the business to them, right? So I think, is anyone an expert right now? No, but are the people who are paying attention to this on a daily basis getting an advantage? Absolutely. And again, I think just like I know you all are, we're doing the same thing as far as pivoting kind of our day-to-day work essentially to focus on these areas that are, really moving the needle, for lack of a better term, on, AI searches and whatever you want to call it. It's not really rankings anymore, but just getting clients surfaced in those LLMs.
Yeah. No, you need to evolve. I mean, and good on you. I love that. Just like a long-term client, you're reaching out and stating, "Hey, we need to change up our deliverables here," and we're doing that to a certain extent too. So that's just like, it's just, again, testament to you, Brandon, and what the business you want to establish. It's like, hey, the main content brief and technical review and those components still work in certain cases, but yeah, to be more impactful, to showcase longevity, you need to evolve. And absolutely, the forum. It's funny too. You're going to watch videos, and it's fairly evident on how to rank. There's a lot of articles out there. Scott Wolfram, I believe, wrote an article about 3 years ago about how to rank, how they work. And they're just glorified autocomplete, right?
Right.
And people are coming out, how to rank, schema, metadata, headers. It's like, come on. Like if you weren't already doing, you weren't already doing some of that, like you're behind the times.
You're in trouble.
And it's funny too. Those are just tactical components. Like there needs to be a strategy. So anyway, and a couple of things that I want to get to in terms of tracking attribution, Brandon, because things are changing. So not only looks like you're being proactive with your clients and saying, hey, that some of those core deliverables are likely going to change. Talk to us about how your core goals and KPIs are shifting with clients too. As we know, Search Console, for example, a lot of impressions, clicks, click-through rate going down significantly in certain cases. Talk to us about that in terms of attribution and reporting, how that's changing.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. And I'll be honest, like for us, I think it's still something that's evolving, right? Because until these platforms natively provide more data, it becomes difficult, right? Because we're still, to your point, like what we're provided in Search Console or what we're provided in Google Analytics is limiting, right? So we talk about some of the stuff that, well, a couple of things. One, on the AI side specifically, we built out in our dashboards, this is basic, right? But we built out our dashboards for lead source, and basically any LLM essentially gets bucketed in its own area. That's been, clients have loved that, I'll be honest, even though, again, it's not a super large portion yet of their business. For many of our clients, it's 5, 10, 15%, which is growing pretty quickly, right? So they want to see that we're helping them get in front of that and that they're growing in those areas. So that's a simple change. But yeah, going back to kind of the whole point in attribution, I think there's going to be a lot of changes in digital marketing when it comes to that. I know a couple of our partners are using, for example, marketing mix model solutions. I believe Meta released an open source option on that. So did Google. I think it's Meridian is Google's, I believe. I forget the name of Facebook's, but I think leveraging those in the future are going to be more and more important for brands as, again, data loss becomes a larger and larger thing. So latest iOS update that's happening coming up here soon, another move towards that, right? Where they're going to be even more so. They already have been stripping a lot of parameters, but that's getting even more, what do we want to call it, rigid or strict on the Apple side. Obviously, Apple owns a large portion of that, right, with iPhones and whatnot. So I think long term, there's going to be a lot of changes, specifically, again, moving to more of those models that will help people understand, based on my mix of what I'm running, SEO, work plus PPC, and then various different channels, any traditional media that maybe is running at the same time. Having a solution like that, I think, is going, again, especially for larger clients, like we work with mostly mid-market, so they'll tend to have budget for that. Small business, it's going to be harder, I think, on them. But having that data and running more tests, I think, as far as, hey, if I shift 5,000 a month from this channel to this channel, how is that impacting my pipeline 2 weeks down, 4 weeks down the road? And then being able to correlate that to those specific changes in, buckets, for lack of a better term, and kind of where we're marketing. I think that's going to be really important. But yeah, it's something that I think all of us are going to need to pay really close attention to, because I'm an analyst at heart. I can't draw a stick figure, but give me numbers, and I'll create a great story, right, with action items on that. And that's what is a little bit scary about all these privacy changes is, the good guy marketers, I'll say, want to use this data for good, which is I want to create a wonderful experience for our partners' customers, right? I want to make that journey really smooth for them and give them what they're looking for based on where they're at in the funnel. And, it's just going to be harder to do that, I think, as we lose some of those data points. But I'd love to hear what you guys are doing in that space too, because I think all of us as agencies probably, have opportunity to up our game in that area.
Yeah, no, it reminds me a little bit of GA3, right? And how the conversion path report and the multi-channel attribution report, how that was just like ahead of its time for a little bit. It was never great. It was pretty poor, and to be honest. But the visualization, to your point around telling a story, is really where we're seeing it's coming back, and it's always been a place, but where there's a visualization and making sense out of numbers and creating more of that kind of thematic reasoning around or percentage models around certain cases for channel and cross-channel attribution, which is not the easiest necessarily. I think for us too, and I think for you as well, you're seeing is that let's say you're managing paid and SEO for a particular client. As we've always known, there's so many other contributing factors, right? They were just at an event. They just launched a new platform. They're doing a ton with traditional advertising, right? And it's never going to be perfect in terms of the attribution modeling, where you're trying to get it to a place of influence and where it's essentially working together, hopefully with consistent messaging as much as possible. Obviously, too, with BigQuery and data lakes becoming more and more common, the power with data to marry that with CRM data and other insights is becoming more and more common and a lot easier to put together, especially with AIs. So, we're hoping for more data transparency, but we'll see. LLM referrals aren't the best necessarily, too, right? You don't see too much there.
Yeah. And so again, going back to that, right? Like a lot goes in the direct bucket, right? So if you're looking at things, but then how do you craft that story to your partner, right? So I think this is where, again, I think, and I know you guys do a great job with your clients as well, but I think building that trust level is so important, right? Because when you go back to the client and say, oh yeah, that increase in direct, we think that's because of this, whatever organic effort we're doing, you're getting picked up by LLMs, they're gonna be like, if you have that relationship, it's different.
Yeah,
okay, we trust you, right?
Yeah,
if you don't, then it's going to be like, okay, are they trying to pull, wool over our eyes here and, manipulate data? But I think if you have that trust built, and again, you have that relationship off to the right start, then you can have those honest conversations where it's just like, hey guys, this is what's happening with technology right now. And here's how we're working around that. And here's what we're going to work towards. And we're going to leverage what we have available to make those right decisions. But yeah, thanks for the blast from the past on the GA3.
Oh man,
which were not multi-device, right? So
exactly.
Even worse when it comes to accuracy. But yeah, it's crazy. Actually, one interesting thing, I don't know if you follow, forget her name. I think it's Casey Jenkins. I want to say she works for a company called Sendoso, and she posted recently, you should check that post out on LinkedIn. It's fascinating to me where they did a study using a really cool analytics tool. I forget the name of it, but it was amazing. It showed, now they're B2B, right? So it's going to be a longer buyer journey than a B2C, relationship. But there were like 55 or something like that touch points, right? It was like first saw whatever, maybe a cold ad, and then went to the website, and then whatever, connected with this person on LinkedIn. And then, but it was just step all the way until that deal got closed. And it's just so fascinating because I think sometimes as marketers, we can just think, oh yeah, someone saw our ad, clicked it, and then booked a demo and then signed $100,000 a year deal. Exactly. The reality is it doesn't happen that way. Right. And so, yeah, I think
I'm thinking about you got me dwelling on that conversion path report too, it was just like a cool, again, never accurate, but it would just tell that story, Brandon, right? That we're always coveting. I think the message too, out of that insight, I'd love to check that out from Sendoso. I've heard of that brand many times too, but is just around staying top of mind, staying relevant. I think you and I too, as SEOs, for so long, it's non-branded keywords. Brand's good. You're fine. You're established there, but we got to focus on non-brand. And it's so funny now how it's changing. Yes, the non-brand component, 100%. Those type of queries in terms of informational are getting tougher, right? With AI overviews, a number of other things, but the brand is a core factor. And where you and I, perhaps, again, I'm not putting you in this bucket necessarily, but where we just so fixate on other components and we're not really going out and establishing the brand maybe as much as we should. Things like organic social and that are just maybe got pushed to the wayside years ago are making such a big push now, I feel like.
100%. Yeah. And I agree with you. And we do the same thing, or have done the same thing, I should say, historically. Because going back to how I know your agency is and how our agency is, right? We want to drive incremental value for our partners. Totally. And so I think, it might have been disingenuous, if we just said, oh yeah, we got you, 1,000 leads this month on SEO, and it's like 900 of them are branded terms. Well, did our agency really drive that big of an incremental impact on that? Right? Probably not, at least in the past. Obviously, like you said, that's changing a bit with kind of where things are going with AI. But yeah, again, just goes to show how quickly our industry changes and how we need to pivot if we want to stay relevant and make sure our partners get to yield the best results. So.
What are you anticipating? Search Console is coming out with and that's already come out, but I know people are seeing it. Some are seeing it, some aren't. in terms of some of the AI performance data. Are you anticipating ChatGPT, Claude, others to come out with more robust insights and data? And then are you, really blow this conversation up is the evaluation of ChatGPT in particular is insane, right? And the model doesn't really make sense because it's, $20 a month for people, whatever, 200 in certain cases. But that evaluation is based on the data and insights because ultimately they're going to look to monetize this. So that's a big thing. So I'm really blowing this conversation up a little bit, but so first part of that question is around data and insights. Are you anticipating these LLMs coming out with more visualization? And then secondly, ads will be a part of these most likely, right? There's going to be some level of monetization. Are you worried about how LLMs could look to prioritize certain things over others? How they're seemingly agnostic, and now maybe with ad revenue, it's going to be a little different. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Yes, all the way around, right? So
exactly
again,
what is going to happen, Brandon. I need to know.
yeah. I will tell you what I think based on, again, almost 25 years of history in digital marketing, right? This is a repetitive cycle that happens any company, which is essentially they're going to come out, they're going to make the entry point very inexpensive, hence ChatGPT $20. And if anyone's listening and you're not paying $20 for ChatGPT, pony up the $20. It's worth it. Right now that is not going to stay at 20, right? They will raise that. But yeah, they're going to monetize it. And I definitely think all of the platforms will offer more analytics in the future because that is going to be, they're going to have to at some point have more of the data to provide to customers, especially customers that don't have partners like you and I that can actually read the data and tell them the story from that. They're going to want to have something built in there where Joe business owner can go in there or Joe business owner and see, oh, wow, ChatGPT is actually sending me a decent amount of traffic and eventually tying that into leads, right? Like that is going to be what I think encourages those people to put money into the platforms. 100% they're going to be monetized. And so now I think is the best time. I always say this, like the best time to get in is early before, especially when advertising does get released, you're going to want to be there because again, if you're quick pivoting as a business, you're going to get a very steep discount on the total value of that advertising. And then at some point it's going to saturate just like it has on Meta and Google. And then you're going to be paying a premium. And then it's going to be, if you don't have a partner like Tyler's business or our business or another agency that's on top of things, then as a business owner, you can't really get it done because you're up against these people that are in these systems all day, every day, optimizing to the nth degree. Optimizing 50% is just going to make you lose money. So, back to your original question. Yes, I think analytics will likely be first from these platforms. Paid will come after that. I think the other thing that's interesting just to add, because I think it's important with LLMs, that's a little bit somewhat unique versus I think what we've seen on at least Google is everything is so personalized. That's another area where it gets a little bit weird if you're doing just like an analysis yourself on, okay, like I did this last week. How does one of our clients rank on this particular core service term that we've worked really hard on from an LLM? And I'll look it up and it's like, I see them number one. It's like the best, client for X service is, and then I see my client and I'm like, yes, that's awesome. And then I'll have someone else and I'm like, hey, can you run that same query in the LLM? And it's like completely different results because the LLMs, they remember, right, what we're typing in. And so they already know, there's a connection here between Brandon and OTR Solutions, one of his clients. And so, they're going to surface and almost baby, for lack of a better term, OTR as far as the results that I see because they know that I'm working with them, right? Exactly. And so it's going to be really fascinating to me how they do that from a paid ad perspective and not have you as you're advertising your partner get chipped out because maybe someone's not aware of who they are, and then maybe the LLM like doesn't surface them because of that. So it'll be interesting to see, but 100% it's going to be monetized. It's going to be the fastest growing area. This is why Google is going so aggressive on this, in my opinion. They obviously don't want to lose their market share. They've got the funds to be aggressive in this area, and they're really going to try to, I think, get in on that before OpenAI does. But I'm fascinated as a consumer to actually use these experiences for like shopping. Like I need new running shoes, and I'll be honest with you, like I'm spending more time on chat, I think, than I am on Google for that. Because I can ask a lot more specific questions and get very specific answers versus the traditional Google, let's say before AI overviews, right? Like I'd have to go to multiple different things. I use this actually example all the time with our partners, kind of talking about this, is like the past me, if I wanted to take my wife out to a date, I would, search for whatever. If I know we want Italian food, best Italian food restaurant in Nashville. And then I'm going to look at ratings, right? And I'm going to find one, and it's like, okay, this one's rated 4.7 stars. People love it. Cool. Maybe look at some pictures. Ambiance looks great. My wife will love this. And then I get all stoked about it. And then I go to make a reservation. They're booked this weekend. Now I got to go find another, right? Versus where things are going from an LLM space, I can type the same query in, and eventually here, I'm going to be able to just book a reservation right on the spot. It's only going to surface answers for me if the system knows the reservation's available at the time I'm asking. It's going to know that I have whatever, a peanut allergy, or I'm gluten-free, or whatever the case is, because it remembers all that about me, right? So it's a better experience, I think, for the consumer. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I know that was a little bit of a tangent response.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, it's yes, advertising will happen, and there will be analytics.
It's insane. Brandon, such great stuff, and I appreciate some of the foreshadowing, and I love you guys are just on the cusp and just really pushing things for your clients, which is awesome to hear. Brandon, wrapping things up here, how can people get in touch with you and talk to me about Trustworthy too, and what's where they can engage and get updates?
Yeah, great question. So you can visit us on our website, trustworthydigital.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. I love to have these nerdy marketing conversations. I think that's like the best thing ever, is when people in our industry just get together and share knowledge freely with one another, right? And just help each other out. Like, let's bring the human back to marketing, right? So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just search Brandon O'Connor for that. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me. And yeah, we'd love, obviously, to talk to anyone who needs help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Brandon and his team. They're doing some awesome stuff. Really impressive watching him grow over the years. Brandon, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tyler.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.